How's it going, guys? Today we're going to be talking about how to make a quiet mechanical keyboard. As you've seen in the intro portion, this keyboard here is quite quiet. It's kind of disgusting how quiet this is, especially compared to a traditional mechanical keyboard, which this one here is using tactiles. And yeah, I really wanted to just talk about this because one of the reasons for a couple of my friends not getting a mechanical keyboard is that they're worried about noise. Maybe they live with their parents still, and their parents don't want to hear just constant all night long, or maybe they have roommates or something like that and they just want to try to be considerate. But mechanical keyboards don't necessarily mean loud. So yeah, we're just going to go through what can be done to make a keyboard more quiet. So I'm going to first say that a lot of this is going to be my own personal opinion, and like my perception of sound characteristics of different materials and different kind of accessories. And I'm not going to worry too much about typing feel. I'll talk about that more towards the end of this video, but the main purpose of this video is to have a quiet keyboard. So the most important thing that you can do to make your keyboard quieter is to use silent switches. That's going to be the biggest factor, just because when you bottom out the switch, there's going to be a little dampener that dampens the noise, and it's not a lot of material on the inside, but it's enough to make quite a significant difference, and it also dampens the return of the switch coming back up. So you get an overall quieter experience, and that I think is going to be the biggest game changer when it comes to making a silent mechanical keyboard. So speaking of switches, I think another thing you can do is film your switches. It'll make the sound more consistent and hopefully more pleasant, but also there are films that are made of quote-unquote gasket material. I don't really know what that means because gasket seems to be such a universal term, but they are kind of squishy, and I don't know how much of a difference it would make, especially on a silent switch, but I have these in here just to hopefully make a little bit of a difference. Apart from that, you also definitely want to lube your switches. I have both 3204 and 205G0 here, and I personally like 205G0 better, especially for linears, because I just feel like it offers a more buttery experience. But I find that 205G0 can be a little bit thick or creamy for tactiles. I've had problems with switches returning even with a very light application of lube. So that in that case I might use 3204. But I also went with linears in this keyboard because I find that linears are just quieter, because tactiles to me sound almost kind of clacky, a louder thok out of them, where linears are more of like a clean, crisp sound. So yeah, lube, and I guess switch type is a consideration, but I wouldn't look too into that. I'd more cater that towards your own preferences for feel. What else you can do is sound dampening in your keyboard. A lot of keyboard cases are going to be some kind of metal, and those resonate a lot. I don't really have an example here because both of these are filled out, but if you have just an empty keyboard case that's metal and you just kind of like tap on it, it'll resonate, and that will come through a little bit when you're typing. But both of these keyboards here have case foam in them. It's just a sheet of EVA foam that I got at Walmart. I cut it up with an X-Acto knife to fit into the appropriate case, and I stack layers as much as I can in each case. Most times it'll just be one sheet. I think in the Prionic, if I really try, I might be able to get two in, but in this keyboard you can't. It's just one sheet, but it keeps it from resonating as much as it normally would. Apart from that, there's also the case material. Again, I did say most cases are going to be metal from my experience, but I think polycarbonate is probably the material to go with if that's an option, because from what I've seen, it creates this really deep sound, and I find that it's a lot more pleasant to listen to than a high-pitched noise. And that goes for most things, like say fans, high-pitched fans sound awful, but if it's just normal like low whirling sound, I think it's okay. And like if you have to make noise, which keyboards will, it's better to have a pleasant noise than an annoying one, obviously. So yeah, I think polycarbonate case would be really cool. I'm not too sure about acrylic. I know acrylic is also pretty common, but in that case, I'd also worry about durability, because I have seen some cases where acrylic doesn't do too well over time. On top of all that, I don't think this is a huge game changer, at least in my case, since I only have one stabilized key, but it's to clip, lube, and band-aid mod your stabilizers. Clipping obviously only applies if they need to be clipped, if they're the older style with the little kind of springy, spongy legs sticking out. I think most modern stabilizers won't have that, but also band-aid modding. It will remove some thock, but it'll dampen the sound a little bit, and stabilizers tend to be the loudest keys, right? Like, it's just loud. But here I have the stabilizer lubed with 205G0 again. I use 205G0 for stabilizers instead of dielectric now, because I find that for me personally, I end up over lubing with dielectric, and then the stabilizer just feels gummy and gross and doesn't return as well as I'd like to. But yeah, so I have these lubed with 205G0, a healthy amount. And also I do have some additional foam in here. It's quite difficult to see, but where the wire is, I actually do have some foam there, just to help prevent the wire from moving too much, because realistically you just want the wire to rotate, not actually change positions. And I've actually had problems where the wire does tend to move around in this Durock stabilizer. But yeah, I added that. It'll help remove some rattle, but I don't think this is applicable in all cases. I also just really did that because the wire just keeps slipping out, and if I didn't do this, then the wire would just be all over the place, and I can see it not being completely straight in here. So yeah, apart from that, I think the biggest overlooked thing when it comes to making your keyboard quieter is typing on a desk mat. Of course, it won't remove any rattle sounds, but because you're pushing down onto whatever surface you're typing on, that sound can resonate out your typing surface. So in the case of wood does transfer sound pretty well. In middle school or something, we did that thing where you kind of like do stuff to a piece of wood and someone's on the other end like listening to it or something. I remember doing something like that, and that kind of thing applies to tables too, obviously. So if you include a desk mat, the desk mat's going to absorb some of that sound and help it not resonate throughout the entire table. So what exactly do I have in this keyboard? What is this keyboard? And yeah, so this is the YMD 40 keyboard kit. The PCB is basically an AMG 40 PCB, but I think it's a clone because I think the AMG 40 PCB actually has that printed on it. This one doesn't, but the box that this came in was labeled AMG 40. This case has a natural angle to it, and it's got some neat design language, like this little like cutout here. This I think is a bit much. I don't understand this. Why would you do this? Why would you do this? Just make it flat. And in here I have Gateron Silent Inks, spring swapped with TX springs, 16mm 67 grams, and desk keys gasket films. I did mention that I do have gasket films in this. Apart from that, I have a Durock stabilizer in the spacebar with the Band-Aid mod done and heavily lubed. So everything is basically as quiet as it can be, other than maybe plate foam. I do have a case foam in here, and that was hand cut, just EVA foam that I got at Walmart, cut it up with an X-Acto knife based on just tracing around the plate, basically, because this is tray mount, so all the holes should line up there. And apart from that, I also have the Drop MT3 Susu Atari keycap set. There's no real particular reason why I went with this keycap set. I just thought it looked cool, and it's got a lot of compatibility for ortholinear layouts. And also, I think MT3 is just a great typing set of keycaps. It's very comfortable, nicely sculpted, and yeah, I like it more than SA. For typing, I guess I like it more than Cherry. I'm not quite sure yet. It's hard to really say. Also, during the intro, I did have this keyboard on a mouse mat. This is a pretty thin one, but I also do have a thicker one as well. So obviously a thicker one is going to absorb more sound and make your keyboard sound quieter, but I think anything is sufficient. But anyways, let's get into a bit of a typing test comparison. The intro might have done it justice, but I wanted to be a bit more thorough than that. So yeah, hopefully that shows you guys how quiet a mechanical keyboard can really be. I didn't do the membrane keyboard on the Deskmat, unfortunately, because I think I broke that thing, but honestly I've had that for probably more than 10 years at this point. So yeah, I'm not too worried about it, and it's honestly a lot quieter just because of the way the stabilizers are treated. So yeah, anyways, in terms of typing feel, because that is super important, I will say that you are going to compromise a little bit on typing feel. It does feel a little bit mushy, or I guess a lot of it has to do with the sound for me, because the sound of bottoming out is kind of a response I expect and kind of need for that kind of crisp feeling that I'm actually like putting in the work or something, you know? Because like with something like this, where you get that instant response that you typing, oh my god, putting it right next to my ear kind of loud, just feels more crisp and like you're actually typing. Like when I think of like properly lubed and treated linears, I think it sounds like the stereotypical office background noise you hear in like old movies and sitcoms, whereas silent switches don't give you any of that. In terms of the sound, it's going to have a very similar sound characteristic to like a decent membrane keyboard. So yeah, or it even almost sounds like a plunger type keyboards, which I think there's only a few of. The one that comes to mind is the Thermal Take Nucker, I think it's called. But yeah, you don't quite get the same response and typing feel, but it's just a compromise you're going to have to make. There are options that are tactile though, like U4 Bobas or Boba U4s, however you want to order it, I guess, which are tactile silent switches, which might give you more of a typing feel, but I do feel that linears in general tend to be a bit quieter, so that's part of the reason why I went with linears for this build. And overall, I'm totally satisfied with this, even though the typing feel isn't like amazing. It achieves what I want it to, and it still feels more like a mechanical keyboard, and membrane keyboards aren't really great. The typing response isn't great. The stabilizers are awful. But in this, it feels great, looks great, doesn't sound. So yeah, mechanical keyboards can be quiet. But yeah, anyways, hopefully if you thought mechanical keyboards were loud before, hopefully this has inspired you to maybe get into the scene a little bit. I will say that silent switches do tend to be a bit more expensive. So for the silent inks, I think I paid about $10 or $11 Canadian per 10 switches. Probably less than that actually, but maybe around there. I kind of regret not getting Sakurio switches instead, but these switches are plenty good for me, and I really like the all black interior aesthetic as well, other than the stabilizer. And the most affordable silent switches that come to mind off the top of my head are probably Duroc Daybreaks or Dolphins, which are basically silent alpacas. I haven't actually used them, but they're silent switches, so I feel like all silent linears probably sound similar. There are probably other ones. I'm sure Otemu makes them because they have silent stems. Gateron obviously, and then there's the Zeal, like Gateron stuff. But yeah, I also haven't tried the Gateron, like the normal silent switches. I wanted something with a very smooth feel, especially after lubing, so definitely wanted something quality for this. And yeah, overall, this keyboard's great. Sound switches are expensive, but I think if you need a quiet keyboard, they're definitely going to get the job done. If you're willing to invest into it, it's there for you. It's pretty accessible, and yeah, that's going to do it. All the other materials in here are fairly cheap. Band-Aids are cheap. EVA foam is cheap. Desk mats, honestly, I feel like everyone should have a good desk mat. Underrated as hell. But yeah, that's actually going to wrap up this video. Oh my god, that was loud. That's gonna wrap up this video. Hopefully this was helpful. Again, if you weren't into mechanical keyboards before because they're loud, hopefully this has answered some of your woes. And if you have any questions about maybe Gateron silent inks or anything, really leave a comment in the description. Leave a comment down below. And I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. It's just that I'm not too familiar with silent switches and other methods of silencing keyboards, but I'll do my best. If I don't know, I'll just say I don't know. Or if you want a more one-on-one chat with me, you can get that at my Twitch channel. I think the name of my Twitch channel is different now, so yeah, we'll have to see about that, but it's going to be in the description, and I'll also link where I got everything from. Even though these are from Drop, I'll link exactly where I got them from, because I didn't get them from Drop. And yeah, I'm not associated with any of the companies I've purchased anything from. I actually bought them full price with my own money, paid shipping and everything. That was brutal. Paying for shipping in Canada sucks. But yeah, anyways, thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.